So good evening. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Courtney Waronka. I'm part of the class of 2021 and MBA class of 2022. A little bit about me, I reside in Chicago and I work as a product manager at a tech startup, and I currently serve a part of the Fold board. So we have two great hosts with us today to help us get through this session. Before we get started, do you want to shed a little bit of light on the fold board? So Falcons of the Last Decade is currently in the middle of presenting our Falcons in Flight series, which is a virtual life skills series for young alumni, but to the benefit of all Bentley community members. So you can gain essential tools and knowledge to thrive after college with discussions on topics like financial literacy, career development, personal wellness, and communication skills. This evening, I will be leading through the discussion with two alumni who will share insights on building skills outside of work, creating opportunities, personal fulfillment, and so much more. So, towards the later part, we will have an open question and answer period. So, definitely feel free to either hold your questions at the end, or if you find that something is super pressing as Margarita and Sue are going through their answers, definitely feel free to submit them as we go along as well, but we will be saving time specifically at the end. So thank you so much for joining. And now I will give our speakers, our alumni speakers, a quick moment to share their educational and professional experience and anything else that they'd like to share before we get started. So Sue, would you like to kick us off?
Surely. Thanks, Courtney. It's so nice to be here. I have no idea who's in the audience because I can't see you, but I can only assume that you're very attentive Bentley alums. So it's nice to meet you all. Sue Gorman, I'm currently the Chief Advancement Officer at Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences. I needed a calculator today to figure out exactly how many years ago I graduated. I think I graduated probably when some of your grandparents maybe graduated, 1984. I'm a marketing undergrad, and there's a whole story to what happened to me after I graduated from Bentley, but I ended up in accounting of all things. Um, Worked for a small company, got my MBA along the way at Suffolk University, worked at more companies, eventually moved into education in the for-profit and then not-for-profit world. Ended up at Mass College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, working for the provost. And because everybody had a doctorate under the provost, I decided to go back and get my doctorate. So I finished my doctorate in business administration 2 years ago at 60 years old. So you can do it. And when a new president was appointed, he named me Chief Advancement Officer. And I can talk more about that as we get along. But that's a little bit about me. So thank you. Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you for sharing, Margarita.
What an intro, Sue.
I'm,
My
I'm exhausted, Margaret.
we're just getting started.
No, no,
Um,
that's a long intro.
my name is Margarita Belaya. I am class of 2020. I graduated with degrees in accounting and CIS. I started my career at a Big Four, as a lot of accounting majors do start out of Bentley, but I did actually just make a transition to the startup world really recently, and I'm very excited about the opportunity. And I am a part of the Fold board, so very excited to be a part of such a great community of alumni that just graduated within 10 years. And we've been planning a lot of great events and have a lot more incoming. So excited to be here tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Margarita. So there are a few different themed sections to today, things like building skills outside of work, networking and creating opportunities, community engagement, and then really balancing the 5 to 9 with self-care as well. But before we get into those different sections, there is, as we're still warming up to one another, there's a quick introduction prompt. So essentially, and whoever wants to start each time, I'll kind of leave it up to you guys. Sometimes people have ideas off the bat, so definitely don't want to keep this a little bit more relaxed. But please share what you're passionate about and how your personal growth or professional journey has been influenced by what you do outside of traditional work hours.
I can kick us off. So, I played volleyball since I was 6 years old. And being in a sport for such a long time, and have had experiences with different coaches, a lot of different teams, from club teams to high school teams. I Volleyball is something that I always saw myself being involved post college, and I ended up becoming a coach for actually a club that I used to play for in high school. And like I said, just having different experiences with different coaches have actually taken away a lot from what I always wanted to be in as a coach. So I now coach 15-year-old girls, and this is actually a first year being on Staten Island, as that's where I'm from as well. So this is our first year being on the island, and just having this great community, being a part of the building blocks that goes into it, has been such a great experience. And serving as a mentor to the girls, as a coach, and just teaching them a lot of different skills that they know that they will bring to their lives and the classroom in school is something that has been very rewarding. And I'm hoping to do it for a lot more years to come.
That's great, Margarita. Over my 4 decades, 40 years, some of the best managers I've met were coaches. Because
Wow.
I'm telling you, you're really good at giving feedback, you're great at motivating. And I pay attention to things like that because what I've always been passionate about is leadership. Not being the boss so much as getting somebody or group of people excited about what they're doing or what I want them to do and accomplish, right? So I'm one of 11 children. I'm the second girl. There were 6 boys born and then 5 girls. So I'm the second girl in the family. So it's kind of a leader of the sisters, but I sure had to negotiate and maneuver my way through a family with 6 older brothers. So leading within that structure was something I always worked on from when I was 6 years old. And so I, throughout my career, have really tried to hone my leadership abilities and skills and help lead and grow other people along the way. So
I love that. I
That's
always have had an idea that leadership is quiet as opposed to loud. So that definitely can relate to that for sure. So
some of my staff might think I get a little loud sometimes, but yeah, it's interesting. And I actually studied leadership as part of my doctorate because everybody talks leadership, and what does that mean? So there's all kinds of theories and research done on leadership. So I'm always interested in that. So
awesome.
anyway,
Thank you. Thank you for your responses. To go into our first theme, these will kind of pertain to building skills outside of work. So the first question is, many people view their evenings and weekends as time to relax or disconnect, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But for people who want to get more out of their evenings, how can we kind of shift this mindset to focus on skill building instead?
well, I can maybe we can take turns, Margarita. So with skill building outside of work, for me as a young professional, I was asked to go out and build a network. I was working for a small startup with just a handful of people. I was the first accountant hired in a technology company. So shortly after I started, my boss said, Sue, you have to go out and you have to build a network. Find people who can help you because we don't know what we're doing. We're growing this company. We think we're doing the right thing, but we need resources. So you need to go and build your network. Well, what does that mean? So through a whole host of introductions and looking at groups I could join and where I could best spend my time was a financial executives group in Boston that I really started to attend meetings and build my network and learn. And that's kind of how I got started. They were evenings, not weekends, but after work. And it's hard because you're working all day. And now you're probably maybe in a hybrid situation where you're working from home and who wants to, stop what they're doing and go out and meet a group of people after working all day. You just, I would have to push myself to do it. I'm also naturally an introvert, believe it or not, in my role. But I am an introvert, but I happen to be a gregarious one. I really like people. So I still had to push myself to get out after work. But that's what I started to do at a very young age. The relationships I formed in my 20s, I still have to this day. So it's not just adding a contact to your LinkedIn account, it's building a relationship with somebody.
Yeah, I could totally relate to that too. And right in the beginning of my career, I graduated obviously as COVID was starting, so the world was all virtual. So coming into a very big company, it might be a very intimidating experience. So I made my best effort to get involved on plethora on different things too. So one of them was a network of women in accounting. And I ended up meeting some of my best mentors that I've met thus far. And that have helped me shape my career within the firm. And I think if it wasn't for them, I probably would have maybe made different decisions when it came to my career, or even towards CPA when I was studying for the license and taking the exams. I appreciate their guidance towards some of the different approaches that they have taken while taking the exams, or some of the they were encouraging me to take some time off too, because it's really hard when you're on this time crunch and you have your full-time job. You also are studying for the CPA exams. You want to make sure you get them out of the way as quick as possible, but you also cannot forget about your physical and mental health. And thanks to them, I was able to kind of like separate the two, and they were great resources on how to deal with certain situations when it came to that portion of my life in that chapter. So.
Awesome. Thank you. The next question is, can you share a personal example where dedicating time outside of work allowed you to develop a skill that directly impacted your career or personal growth?
Well, for me, when I joined that group, that finance executive group, in 1985, 86, when a young female walked into a room after work, uh, it was full of men, a sea of men in suits. It was so intimidating to walk into a group. And I actually, sometimes I would go to an event with my boss, a man, and we would walk in the front door and he would say, Sue, you take a right, I'm going to go left. You're on your own tonight. You have your business cards. I'll see you back here in 3 hours. So there was no hand holding. I was just flung into this sea of men. What I did, though, was get involved. There were committees in this group. I looked at things that I was interested in. It was a time when the tide was shifting a little bit. Men were saying, well, I think we need to have women as part of our group. And so I got involved that way, growing the female membership of the club. What you learn along the way is growing your leadership skills, your interpersonal skills, your communication. building relationship, finding mentors, as you mentioned, Margarita. So it was a wonderful opportunity. I guess I had to continue to push myself, being a young person in such an intimidating environment, and then did other events at Bentley. Bentley was starting to have a women's alumni group. Wow, all the women were getting together. So I attended those things too. Um, so you learn a lot as you start to build your network, to grow your skills, and be part of somebody else's network and be a resource for them.
I love that, especially being a resource for someone. So one of my other involvements that I will probably stay involved for a really long time. In high school, I had the pleasure of being a part of Virtual Enterprise, which is a series of business competitions. That's where you get to write a business plan from scratch. You get to come up with the whole business, and then you present on different levels, where it's regional, cities, and nationals. So throughout that entire competition, there's a lot of presentation skills that go into play. And in high school, I was very rehearsed. I was basically memorizing the scripts of what the presentation is supposed to look like. And once you get to college, and especially Bentley, you know that a lot of the time, sometimes things don't go the way they should during presentation. You just have to be kept on your toes and go from there. And professors at Bentley, I know, do a fantastic job at doing that, preparing you for the jobs, all of the meetings you're going to be leading, whether virtual or in person. So I was able to gain that experience through Bentley, and also just by working and being at a real job after college. So after that, I started to go back to my high school and basically being a coach for the kids that are now competing in these business competitions, when it comes to their presentation skills. Um, it's been very nice to give back, and that's also kind of where that giving feedback feature comes in. And you also learn a lot from them too. Sometimes they will throw in something into the presentation, or use like presentation skills that I haven't thought of before, and now I use them, or something that's just nicer for the audience as well, to see. So it's been very rewarding to even get involved with them too. So, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
I love it. Next question is, how have you sustained motivation through obtaining long-term goals?
Sustaining motivation. Well, you set personal goals. So this finance group that I joined and got involved, I joined a committee. I eventually um, headed up the committee, and I set a goal to be president of that organization that I was so afraid to walk into when I was 25, 26 years old. So that meant years of board service, um, hosting events, showing up, meeting people. When I joined, got involved with, and I did become president of that group, by the way. I think in 2012, 2013, I became president. So um, it was really exciting for me to finally, it took me a while, but I became president of that group. It was actually the largest um, financial executives association in Boston, for decades, and is still in existence. It's called Financial Executives International. I also got involved with Bentley, some of the Bentley alumni um, groups, and set a goal. Again, setting goal. How am I going to keep going and keep the momentum going? Set a goal. I wanted to be president of the Alumni Association. I ended up being vice president, but then jumped to the Bentley Executive Club, which was an alumni executive club that existed, that shut down during COVID. But I became I think, co-chair of the Bentley Executive Club. So just setting those goals, and that means showing up, and I'm going to try to reach those goals. So that helped me quite a bit.
I think setting goals is definitely very motivating. And I think it's a great way to set kind of the level for yourself too, and which will drive you to obviously your goal too. And like yourself, I am also very involved, still on campus. And
Good.
when I was graduating from Bentley, I knew I wanted to get involved in Fold, but there's obviously a process where like you have to get vetted and you have to get nominated and so forth. So I was very excited when I got the opportunity to get involved on the board and to serve and be that person, the voice that will be able to organize the events where we'll get to bring the alumni together for different purposes, whether it's educational or just showing them how campus has changed, what new things are we implementing on campus. And it's been very, very rewarding. Every single event that we have had, whether it's in New York City, in Boston, just so awesome to see people coming together from so many different classes, and just networking and building the Bentley community. And there's a lot of different common grounds that you able to find still, whether it's the classes that we may have taken, or the dorm buildings that you may have lived in, or so many different things that you could talk about.
I know I'm the host, but one thing I always think about with long-term goals that my company talks about is like you have a long-term goal, and sometimes you'll feel like you're constantly putting out fires in a forest, like you just can't seem to get there. But at the same time, you also want to be building a boat because the boat on the river could have taken you by the fire way faster. So, like, always try to
Mhm.
celebrate those small wins of building the boat so that when you feel like you're in this never-ending fire, celebrate your small wins that get you to the long-term goal that get you on the boat faster. So that's one thing I always like to remind myself. Build a boat while you're gonna have to put out the fires, but focus on building and celebrating your boat. So,
Like that
anyways,
boat
yeah.
analogy. Wow.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. But anyways, okay, moving more into networking and creating opportunities. Networking often seems like a job-specific activity. How can you use evenings and weekends to network in a way that feels authentic and doesn't add to burnout?
Well, I think what I would suggest is something similar to what I said earlier. Find something that you're interested in. If you're interested in it, it's not going to feel so, you know, draggy, burnouty. It's just if you're interested in it, and then if you find like-minded people that you're getting involved in and um, getting to know each other, it makes it more fun, and you can actually great relationships and friends. So when I joined groups, when I got involved with the finance group, when I got involved at Bentley as an alum, what are those things that interest me? Um, and usually when you join something or show up and you show an interest in something, somebody always says, "Well, run with it." Sure, because most of these things are volunteer driven. So if you as a volunteer are interested in taking on something and running with it, most likely you'll have that opportunity. So I think it's about finding something that you enjoy while you're building your network.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I think another important thing that I have to remind myself of all the time, especially in the beginning of my career, not maybe a little bit less now, but I feel like I used to put a lot of pressure on myself when it came to networking or getting involved in a lot of different things. One of the main things I learned is just to get involved in the organizations that are more so quality for yourself rather than quantity, and try to give your quality time to that activity or to that organization. It's not about the number in which things we can get involved in, You can be involved in 50 different things, but I might be involved in one and have a better experience that you may have. So I think that in the beginning, I definitely got over involved in my first year in my career. But you learn pretty quickly, and especially with all the other responsibilities that life comes with, you have to start and get better at prioritizing things. You also have to prioritize yourself too. You don't can't forget about your own needs too. So just need to make sure that you kind of keep yourself in check when it comes to that.
I love it. That was awesome. Um, okay, next networking question. What types of networking events or opportunities have you found to be the most effective outside of traditional work hours? Are there any non-work settings where networking has led to unexpected opportunities?
That's a mouthful, Courtney.
Sorry. If
Well,
I,
no,
not
no.
to again put this on myself, but I have my job due to a family Christmas party. So you just
Very
never
good.
know who you're gonna meet out even during the holidays or like a cookout. So just always being like your authentic self, I guess, could lead to something. So
Absolutely. And I've gotten jobs um, from you. Okay, I'll tell you this quick little story. I've been unemployed 3 times in my life. The first time I quit on my own. I was young. I graduated from Bentley. I'm out of here. I'm done. I did not have a network. I did not know what to do. By the second time I was unemployed, I had been working on building my network through my finance group, through Bentley. When I was unemployed, I had people to reach out to. Hey, will you meet with me? This is what I'm looking for. This is who I am. Here's my elevator speech. The third time I was unemployed, my network was so strong that I had people calling me. Hey, I heard you're looking. I heard you left. Can I help? Want to get together? And and that took years, but it was the beauty of a network because when you're looking for an opportunity, it can be lonely sometimes. So to not have people who know you, um, know who you are as a person, it can be very helpful. A couple of other things I was thinking of unexpected opportunities. As you get involved and do things with these groups or in activities, you can grow skills like becoming a better public speaker. You get to know people who have different backgrounds, more diverse backgrounds. I know I grew my confidence through those years as I became involved. And usually, when you attend events, there are speakers, and they're speaking on interesting topics, so you learn things. So I think the what you get out of building your network and growing those connections is a lot. A lot.
Yep. No, totally agree with both of you on that one. I think another important thing that I learned probably a little bit less than a year ago, where my coaching job came from, is you also have to voice your interests and Courtney mentioned this, but being your authentic self at all times. My coaching job came about very randomly. I every single year I go to my high school senior game for volleyball, and I always try and support my coach and the girls on the team. And my travel coach just happened to be there. I haven't really talked to him. I haven't seen him since I graduated high school almost 10 years ago. And the first person I walk in and I see him. And immediately we obviously started to catch up, and he was like, "What are you up to? So and so." And we're just like catching up on different people. And have you seen her? And he was like, "What, like, why aren't you coaching?" And that was like one of his first questions to me. And when I was playing for him for a club, I always told him, I was like, I would love to be a coach one day. And he taught me a lot of very valuable things as well. And he was like, why aren't you coaching? I haven't heard your name. And I was like, well, I haven't really thought about it. And nor have just had the time to even think about it. I was so focused on my career and just like building that up for a while post graduation. And when I finally had the time to like breathe and think, I was like, why am I not doing that? So he quickly made some calls, texted some people, and the next thing I know, I was on the phone with the founder of the club team that I was on. And he immediately was like just asking me about my experiences and so forth. And he invited me to be one of the founding coaches on Stackdown for the team. And
Oh,
I have enjoyed it ever since. And we have a lot of tournaments coming up, which I'm so excited about. Um, just spending time with the girls and coaching them some more.
That's awesome. It really sounds like in both situations, it had almost like a rippling effect, like putting yourself out there and being your authentic self and doing what interests you led to really good opportunities down the line. So those are great examples, but we'll have to move on to the next section. So this one focuses on community engagement and personal fulfillment. So the question is, volunteering or engaging in community projects can be a fulfilling way to spend time outside of work. How can these activities, volunteering and community projects, contribute to both personal fulfillment and professional development?
well, I think by now the audience knows we saw the questions ahead of time. So
Yeah.
when I saw community engagement, um, that's so broad. I was thinking about my Bentley um, involvement as an alumna and um, wanting to be involved for Bentley. I also lived close to campus, so I was able to get there after work or on the weekends. I also loved interacting with the Bentley students and Bentley faculty. I mean, um, it's so awesome. And as you all probably know, when you bump into somebody when you're out at an airport or something and you see a Bentley sweatshirt, it's like, hey, do you go to Bentley? I graduated 40 years ago. Um, so my volunteerism over the years, although it's kind of ebbed and flowed given what I had going on in my personal and professional life, um, it was is very fulfilling. It is absolutely a pleasure for me to speak to fellow alums like Courtney and Margarita and the audience, whoever you are out there. I know you're wonderful Bentley peeps. Um, my involvement with Bentley, I've also reconnected with classmates that I hadn't seen in a long time. I've created new friends through getting to know mostly women. Um, Through the Bentley Executive Club, we actually formed a group of, okay, I'll call it, we're the Bentley Babes. There's about 7 of us that go out on occasion. We met through the Bentley Executive Club. We absolutely love each other, and we still go out on occasion and text and talk all the time. And we have that Bentley connection. I've also been able to hire Bentley alumni. I have the pleasure of working with 2 women right now that I met, one who was an undergrad in the advancement office, and she's part of my team now. I've known her for 25 years. And the other was in the advancement office, and she would ask me for donations. And I've hired her too. The president of our college is a Bentley alum. I have another gentleman on my team who's a Bentley alum. And we even formed a small Bentley lunch group at my university where we all work and get together. So the Bentley connection, I think, so when I think about that question, Courtney, it's about, for me, my connection to and with Bentley.
You have your own like Bentley at
I've got to tell you all, over the years, this is how pathetic. I've had like neighbors say to me, "You work for Bentley, right?" It's happened
Uh,
so often in my life. It's like, no, I don't have it. Okay, I know I have a Bentley license plate, and I'll
I
wear
think
the
that's
gear, but I don't know why. I don't know why even, because I've never worked for Bentley, but people have assumed I work for Bentley.
And Bentley pride.
People at my university think I came from Bentley.
that is hilarious.
Anyway,
That's
That's
all.
awesome. Oh my goodness. I think my involvement at Bentley, it just I'm involved obviously on different initiatives. That also includes the accounting department as well. I work with faculty regarding different like CPA initiatives that we have going on with CPA exam changing and just the licensure changing and so forth. So it's been very rewarding to also speak to current students and just to share my experience. I always appreciated alumni when they came back to either the classroom or the career fair or just different events that we had on campus and just hearing their experience and how has Bentley prepared them for their jobs and for just life too. And Courtney just happens to be one of my best friends that I met at Bentley. So it just things
it
like
works.
that no, it definitely works for sure. And, like she was such a huge part of my Bentley experience too, which has been so awesome, just like seeing both of us prosper in our careers and our lives and just our families too. So these are the things that just make me the happiest and just knowing that it all came from Bentley as well.
So true. And just engaging overall, it just like leads one thing to another before you know it. And then
Right.
the rippling effect, not to bring it up again, but the rippling effect.
There is a bond that we all have.
Yep.
It really exists.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Well, thank you for that. The last part goes into balancing the 5 to 9 with self-care included in that. So the question is, do you think there's a danger in overcommitting to external growth activities? How do you set boundaries to ensure that your quote unquote 5 to 9 remains sustainable and you can engage in rest, relaxation, etc.?
This is a great question. I think you, Margarita, mentioned how you like overcommitted. Yes, I'll do this and I'll join that club and join that committee. And I did that too. I did it as an undergrad at Bentley where I way overcommitted all the time. And then I found myself as a young professional trying to be out 3 nights a week, which is fine when you're young, but then when you start working 10-hour days and you're out at night, it'll wear on you. It'll wear you down. You stay out late. Sometimes there's food and alcohol, so you're out even later. Then you don't feel good the next day. So you really have to learn to balance um, and watch some of those events, what's on the menu, so to speak. And you kind of learn the hard way. But I at one point refused to do more than two some events a week. Today, at my age now, one a week is just about all I can handle. And then I've got to make sure that I balance my work day so that I don't overdo it because you can really crumble and then I don't want to do anything. I'm done with everything. So advice from an old lady, get your sleep, get your exercise, drink lots of water, watch your alcohol, watch your sugar, because it will catch up to you.
Yeah, I think I definitely hit my breaking point at one point.
Mm.
And that's kind of how I learned is like you do have to balance it and you have, like I already mentioned, you have yourself, you have your job, you have your extracurricular activities, you also have friends and family and everybody wants your time, but there's only 24 hours in the day. I always say I wish there were more hours in the day. That would make me even more happier, but that's just not the reality of it. So I think as even if you don't want to learn the hard way, I think a lot of people do. And the whole like dinners and being out is very, very fun. But then you just come back home and you're not getting enough sleep, and then you're not really at 100% at work, or you're not at 100% with your family, with your friends after that, and you just don't want to do that. I also ended up traveling for work quite a bit in the middle of my career. So that was also a big part of me hitting my breaking point. I was on the road Monday through Friday, come back home Saturday, Sunday, go back on the road Monday. So it just depends on what kind of a lifestyle you're living within your 9 to 5. Some people own businesses that do not have the luxury of having a 9 to 5, so you have to be a little bit more flexible on certain things. So just a lot of different factors you have to think about.
Yeah, that's so true. And just like recognizing, like, hey, I'm at my breaking point. Like, what's 3 things I can do to give myself a little bit more leeway too is super important. So, thank you. That wraps up the main questions. We do have a few questions that were submitted in advance through registration, so we'll quickly run through those. But I just want to say to those attending, if you want to take a moment to submit any questions that you may have thought of during the panelists, feel free to submit those, and we'll definitely get to them before the end of the hour. But if you are here and you submitted through registration, one of the questions here is, how do you know when it's time to leave your 9 to 5 job?
Well, I know because I've had that experience more than once. Um, I always say to people who've worked for me over the years, and I do say this all the time to my team, we work hard, I do a rah-rah, and then I'll say, oh, by the way, have fun today, have fun with what you're doing. Because really the answer is when you stop having fun at work, when it's a grind, you're not happy, you're not motivated, you don't like the people you work with, you don't like your boss. This isn't somebody who actually gives, positive feedback and motivates me. That's when it's time to leave. You don't want to stay too long. You want to recognize those symptoms and start making you move. And that's why your network's important.
Yep, totally agree. I think another point is where maybe sometimes you just stop feeling supported, as in just like a human being, and also as a professional, you feel like you don't really have anyone pushing you to be your better self outside of yourself pushing you as well. That's also very important to have someone of your leadership to have doing that for you. Um, I feel like there's whether that's a mentor, whether that's a direct manager, director, whoever you're working for, I think it's very crucial for your career because someone that who has lived a lot of different experiences, maybe has even been in your shoes before, has learned certain lessons that they may hand down to you and avoid some mistakes ahead of time.
I love that. The next question is, what's a common mistake people make when trying to optimize their 5 to 9? So after work hours. I always get confused when I'm like, wait, are we talking about the 9 to 5 or the
I
five
know
to
it
nine?
takes me a second. I'm like, wait, which one?
No, this
Yeah, wait, what is say that again, Courtney?
what's a common mistake people make when they're trying to optimize their 5 to 9? And one thing I thought of immediately was like getting really stuck in a routine. Like you just do the same thing. And I think like thinking of like a good habit you want to start. And I think they say like what a habit takes like 29 days. Like your goal is to do it for 29 days straight. So like starting to think to yourself, like, I understand I'm not optimizing. Like, what's one small thing
Yeah.
I can do to like,
I I thought that meant overdoing it. If you over commit,
oh,
that's how I
true,
took that
that's the other
question.
way.
I don't know if
Sorry.
the
Yeah.
person's in the audience, they want to clarify, but that's how I took it.
Yeah. No, you're
They,
probably right.
I don't know, but that's what it sounded like to me.
Something that I wanted to just mention, this kind of goes back to what Courtney was saying about the habits. I am very boring and I only read self-help books. Don't make fun of me for it. I never got into the whole fiction stuff. So yeah, if I can't learn something from a book, probably not reading it. But I did read a book a couple years back, and I feel like a lot of people have read like it's a book about habits, how to build habits and healthy ones. And one of the main takeaways that I took away from it is it's easier to build a habit if you stack it on top of a habit you already have. So like let's say you want to start taking vitamins and you drink coffee every single day. So it's easier to take the vitamins either before or after drinking your coffee because your coffee is already part of your routine. Vitamins are not yet. So, like I said, it's easier to just start stacking these other habits that you'd like to engage in with habits you already have. So, just a
I
little
love
tip.
that.
It helps me. So,
Oh, yeah, Margarita, I like
Yeah. The last question is, when you're in a funk and want to change your routine, what motivates you to do so? Maybe I read that one in my head and I just answered that before.
that works.
So helping to
that.
get out of funks, we just talked about habit stacking for sure.
I think it's taking action. It's actually doing something. Um, Even if it's something as simple as I'm gonna go take a walk around the block because I'm just really upset right now. To the versus or making a longer term commitment to making a change in your life. Like for me, it's exercising every day. I can't figure out when I'm going to exercise. My doctor told me I had to exercise 30 minutes a day. Well, when am I going to do that? I can't do that. I'm working. And then I just said, Sue, get up earlier every day and you're just going to get on the treadmill or go to the gym. You just have to do it every day. And that's what I've committed to. Because I was in a real funk about, I can't do it and I'm supposed to do it and I can't do it.
In addition, loving self-help books, I also love self-help podcasts. And if any of you have ever listened to Mel Robbins, she is so good. I love listening to her, and she just had a podcast basically go viral a couple of weeks ago. And basically, the sentence is like, no one's going to do it for you. So you kind of have to get up and do it yourself. No one's going to write your business plan for you. No one's going to exercise for you. You just have to do it. And that kind of stuck with me. And sometimes it's hard and it takes some self pep talk to be like, all right, like 3, 2, 1, let's go. And if that's what you have to do, then that's what you got to do. But everybody has their own ways, I feel like, when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's maybe people around you that will motivate you a little bit more. But
So true. You just
Margarita,
identified it. Like,
once you make a commitment, there's no going back.
no.
Sorry, Courtney.
no, no, that's it's like asking for help is a great way too, but at the end of the day, like all you have is yourself. So like help yourself and like remind yourself and just figuring out like no one knows you better than you. So like take in all of the different things that people use and the tactics that help them and then make your best decision too. So,
Exactly.
well, that was the last question. We can give another minute to see if anyone else has a last minute question here. But I do want to thank the both of you for taking the time to be here tonight. This session is recorded, so anyone who's here, if they have a friend or another alumni that wants to see it, it I believe will be available to you at a later date. And I just want to wrap up by sharing some upcoming Falcons in Flight series programs that are going to be open or are already open for registration. And Allie's going to pop the link to register for them in the chat. And the first one is AI Across Industries, which is Friday, March 7th from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And then the second one is How to Hire Durable Skills, which is Thursday, April 17th from 12 to 1 p.m. So those are the last two to wrap up the Falcons in Flight series for the academic year. Like academic year, I don't know why we're not in school, but academic year. We run on the academic schedule, I guess, as a group, but
Yes,
anything I'm
thank
forgetting, Sue
you.
and Margarita?
No, thank you for being the best moderator, Sue. Thank you for being the best co-host with me. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully I'm sure we'll get to connect.
I hope so too. And anybody's welcome to reach out to me. You'll find me on LinkedIn or sue.gorman@mcphs.edu. I'm happy to connect and have a chat or a cup of coffee. And Courtney did a great job. Margarita, I feel like I want to go out and buy some self-help books.
If you need
I
any
know. Oh,
recommendations, I have so many, probably too many, but
I love it.
thanks,
Okay,
Allie.
well, thank you, everyone. Happy Tuesday.
everybody.
Have a good one.
Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.